Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call the Anaheim City Council meeting back to order. I'm going to go a little out of order here. I know there's been the big discussion and news in the county is situation at the riverbed. I'm going to ask our city manager at this point, kind of out of order, if I could ask for your update, and if you could include that issue in it at this time, just to let people know who are here and might be leaving early.
I'll give a brief update, and I'll start with just a brief background as well. As council knows, and many of our residents, a complaint was filed against the county as well as various cities, including Anaheim, to stop the clearing of the river trail and Anaheim's camping ordinance as well. On February 13th, Judge Carter presided over this matter and held a hearing and ordered the county to locate shelter and begin notification to those residing on the river trail. That clearing would begin on February 20th, which is the day that he intended to lift the temporary restraining order, and he indeed did on that day. The city's camping ordinance, however, remains intact. Since February 13th, Judge Carter has been very active and present during the entire notification process and is still very active today. And an update as it pertains to this, per our Sheriff's Department as well as CityNet, the entire trail has since been cleared from Ball Road all the way to the 5 freeway. And motel vouchers have been provided by the county, as well as an additional 60 beds at our Bridges of Kramer facility, and that came out of the judge's order on February 13th as well. The county is committed to provide mental health assessments of each person in motels and shelters and connect them to resources, while CityNet helps with the continuum of care, offering shelters and including those individuals in their coordinated entry system. Judge Carter also visited Bridges and was very impressed with how well the facility was set up, as well as the wraparound services provided there. And I'd like to add that he was especially complimentary of Anaheim and all the work that we've done in this area. And then just briefly, since February 14th, to date, 719 individuals from the Santa Ana riverbed have either been motel housed or sheltered. And as this impacts Anaheim, this clearing, we have received a few complaints this week of issues with folks setting up possible encampments along railroad property and some Caltrans properties along the freeways. Our homeless outreach team is very active in this area now, and we'll be visiting these locations daily and checking on those individuals and ensuring that we provide resources to them, as well as educate the property agencies of what they can do and who they should contact. So that is my brief update. I'm happy to answer any questions of council if you have any.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Thank you for all the good work you and your staff have done. Very collaborative, all the nonprofits. But particularly want to publicly thank Judge Carter. Really has served as a bold role as a federal judge, very bold role, and as a catalyst to get things moving, and I want to publicly thank him for making so much of this happen. Okay, now is the time for public comments on any agenda items. The city clerk will read a brief decorum statement, and we'll invite those speakers who complete a speaker card to the podium first, followed by speakers who decline to submit a card. Madam Clerk, will you please read the statement and call the first few speakers to the podium?
On behalf of the City Council, we would like to remind the public that this portion of the meeting provides the public with an opportunity to speak on any item within the Council's jurisdiction. Anaheim remains committed to freedom of speech, and we ask that speakers address the City Council with civility and refrain from making personal, threatening, abusive, slanderous, or profane remarks towards any member of the Council, staff, or general public. We appreciate you reflecting this spirit when you speak. And with the first 5 speakers, please step forward. Paul.
Yeah, a lot of great work, a lot of great people in the city.
Thank God for a judge with common sense, and things are getting done now. The displaced homeowners who lost everything to the point of ending up homeless in the cities since the recession of 2008, even though some got back on their feet, many got caught up on making wrong decisions, and many that were disabled and older citizens lost even their pensions, are now categorized in the cities and county as criminals for being homeless under the camping and storage ordinance. For years, we had been pleading for more shelters in every city to no avail, with the exception of the 2 shelters from the county that opened a year or so ago in Anaheim and Santa Ana, but just a bandage on a big wound that grew over the years. We claimed a state of emergency over a year ago before you did, and nothing was done except to keep criminalizing hundreds of people on the streets, pushing them into the riverbed. I have talked to the sheriffs and some liaison officers, not the Anaheim liaison team, but from other cities, of who off the record have said criminalizing the homeless is not the answer. Even the chief of police have said on the record, we cannot get ourselves out of this through law enforcement. I still believe in affordable housing and rent control, and I still believe in alfresco gardens, transitional outdoor living, especially for the shelter resistance. Stop criminalizing the homeless and keep up the jobs program and implement housing first model. I mean, it had to take a lawsuit and more lawsuits to actually bring some common sense to the situation. Nobody has listened to us as we have come here and gone to the Board of Supervisors, not only with plans. Even Nancy West had taken her time and effort for years to actually construct a concept of alfresco gardens, which is now implemented in other places. Not here, where we could have done it before San Diego or anywhere else. San Diego implemented that because of the problem they had out there with that epidemic. Now, you know, it's sad that the county
Mr. Noble, I'm
never
sorry, your time is up.
implemented restrooms in that riverbed, or actually did, you know, what needed to be done. But now we're stuck here, and people are still in the streets, homeless, in this cold weather.
Thank you.
First 5 speakers, please step forward. Paul Hayek, R. Joshua Collins.
I'm Paul Hike, city manager. I heard 90 beds at Kramer, 4 of those on the river. Grapevine from people in the place. Number 1. Number 2, we need to get it where we can roll in and out with bicycles instead of putting them on their shuttles. Their drivers are not B rated. They're all Class C's, and they drive like it. And we've even got an issue at the Armory with a 40-foot bus. And one more thing, I think they're monitoring the Wi-Fi at Kramer for what sites you go to. I think that's illegal. We should shut it off for a while. And that's about all I got to say. And if the council wants some help on finding the homeless, check the railroad tracks between Euclid and Lincoln over off over by the railroad tracks and the freeway. You can see it from the Euclid overpass. They are on the railroad right away.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Collins.
And Julie.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm R. Joshua Collins, founder of Homeless Advocates for Christ on Facebook. And I am also very encouraged by the work of Judge Carter. I'm thankful, Mayor Tom, that you gave him credit for what he did. It seemed like the county was more trying to take credit for doing all these great things, but I think Judge Carter was really instrumental in making a lot of great things happen. First and foremost, I want to encourage everyone to give their life to Jesus Christ. Jesus died for us, and Jesus was homeless, and he, of course, is the only way to heaven, to put our faith in him, and he was the perfect example of non-materialism. He lived really simple, and I think for this city to become a city of kindness, we have to become a lot less materialistic. I think that's one of the root causes of a lot of the issues with the homelessness and all of that is, of course, we have the lack of affordable housing. People are putting profit over people. And until that mentality changes, we're going to have that continued problem of people living on the streets and not having access to the basics of life. Jesus told us, don't store your treasure on earth, but in heaven. And how many of us are really doing that? And it's a challenge to do that in this world. And a lot of times people will look down on you if you do that. But we have to change for the betterment of others around us. This is one thing I asked the city to do. And I've asked before. But right now, sleeping bags and tarps are still illegal in public spaces in this city. Now, how do you think that makes a homeless person feel that happens to have a sleeping bag or a tarp? And does that really humanize them, or does it dehumanize them? And if you want to be a city of kindness, laws like that need to change, And if you're just talking about being a city of kindness and not putting action to it, it's not going to impress anybody. And it's going to set you up for more lawsuits. So I just want to encourage you guys to really work on that. Maybe put this on the agenda. That, maybe we could amend Chapter 11 of the Anaheim Municipal Code regarding the no camping, no storage of property, considering the situation we're in with all the homeless and lack of affordable housing. So I'd love to work with you guys on amending this. It could be something that I think would benefit a lot of people and maybe protect you from more lawsuits. But we need to consider reality. In a perfect world, everyone has housing, but this isn't a perfect world, obviously, and a lot of people are still in danger of persecution under these laws that you passed. So let's be merciful. I'm not here to say you should defend drugs and alcohol and that kind of thing, but just the basic need for housing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Robbins, Housing is a Human Right, OC. We did meet with people from Orlando, Florida today. They housed 3,000 homeless people in 3 years with a 93% retention rate. I will come to the riverbed. We were there, of course. All of our group was there to help the people. There were heroes. There were Dave and Pat, and there was Rebecca, and there was Joshua Collins. And they were there to help people, to save lives. They perhaps even brought a bottle of water or some food because nothing that wasn't ordered by the judge was supplied by the cities or the county. Not a bottle of water or a scrap of food. And luckily, there were people who brought things in, like some foster children who saw it on the news and brought in food and water. It wasn't the first day that with a little help, David Duran got somebody a job. I do believe there's a friend of mine on the council here who mentioned something about job training a year ago. And I think something like that proves that there are people out there who want to work, need a job, and also there are people that will line up for 12 hours with no food or water, for a roof over their head, not for the civic center or a mat on the ground, but a roof over their head, because you know they offered them motel rooms. And if you saw the pictures, or if any of you happened to be out there, you saw they were lined up, no food or water for 12 hours. Well, if they did have something, it was very little. I want to remind you, please, whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his deed. Whoever closes his ear to the cry of the poor will himself call out and not be answered. A righteous man knows the rights of the poor. A wicked man does not understand such knowledge. I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Whoever gives to the poor will not want, but he who hides his eyes will get many a curse. Whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. For there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore I command you, you shall open your hand wide for your brother, to the needy, to the poor in your land. Now we need to hear the report from Orlando. Perhaps you need to accept it. And you also have to follow through on the things that you say, because it's important, not just for these people to survive, but also for the human lives that are out there now that need help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, and thanks for the timer. I have my own story from the riverbed. For the last 2 weeks, there's been dozens of advocates out there trying to ease the transition for the people out there, to make it a little bit less stressful, to help them with whatever they needed. Last Tuesday, the county decided to make things a little bit more difficult by having the people, the residents, run back and forth between Catella and Orangewood, wait in various lines. At that time, David Duran and I were at Orangewood, and there was a couple. She was in a wheelchair, and he had a stroke. He literally could not walk. So we got them into my van, and I drove them back to Catella. At Catella, I pulled up there and blocked the right lane of traffic, and there had to have been, within 20 feet, a dozen sheriffs, and perhaps, let's just say, a dozen county employees. They could see that I was struggling. I asked them for help. I was trying to get her into her wheelchair, into the lane of traffic, and none of them would come help me. Who came and helped me was Spencer, the young reporter from the Voice of OC. So he helped me unload her and get her into her wheelchair, and he pushed her onto the sidewalk. The gate was open. I needed help with the gentleman getting out. I couldn't carry him. He couldn't walk. Nobody would come. But somebody came. And that was Brian Kay. And for that, he will have my undying gratitude. He came, he put the man's arm around his shoulders, and he literally carried him in there and got him and his wife into the right line and shepherded him through this most stressful situation, so that later when I came, they were already sitting, waiting for a bus to take them to a motel room. I asked, on my way out, I saw Susan Price, and I asked her, Susan, please help them. She could see. Well, the sheriffs tried to close the gate as I was pushing him in his wheelchair. And then, because I was very verbal, they left it open. But as I was walking out, I asked Susan, please help them. And she's nodded to me. By the time I got out to my van, got my seatbelt on, looked to make sure, she's just walking across with another woman across the bridge to go to the Honda Center. Not helping the people. Brian Kay was helping the people. That is what continues to this day. That couple was placed in the Portela Motel in Buena Park. They're on the second floor. They're both handicapped. They can't walk. They got no food vouchers. On our way here, Mike and I dropped them off clothing and non-perishables to them, hoping that their food vouchers may come someday soon. So I just want you to know because of the advocates and
Ms.
because
Robbins,
of
I'm
Brian.
sorry, if you can conclude your comments.
I am so proud to have this sign that he made for me, and it holds a place of pride in our house. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. And Brian, thank you for your kindness to that couple. Okay. Welcome.
Hi. Okay, I'm going to read so I don't go off on a tangent. Good evening. Tamara Jimenez with Anaheim Lighthouse. First, I want to say thank you to all council members for your tireless work, as well as Anaheim PD and Anaheim Fire Department. Colin, the representative from Drug Free Anaheim, and myself have been doing outreach on the riverbed for approximately 8 months. Up until the lawsuit was filed, we have successfully placed approximately 20 people directly from the riverbed into treatment through Drug Free Anaheim and at Anaheim Lighthouse. The riverbed had a rampant drug epidemic population. Most of the people we spoke with over the 8 months admitted to having long-term substance abuse issues and mental health. In December, at the triage day, Colin had over 20 beds available for treatment and detox. 5 people from the riverbed at that time accepted services, one of which came to Lighthouse. As soon as the federal lawsuit was filed, everyone left on that riverbed became completely treatment resistant, no matter what we offered. Once the closure started, we ramped up our efforts in offering detox and treatment beds. The county had like over 20 beds. Colin had got some beds through Drug Free Anaheim. I called around all the places that I knew, private facilities, and was able to get beds donated, like scholarship beds. But not one person accepted the help. Last week, I spent 3 full days down there assisting with offering beds. I had a few people that said they were interested, but in the end opted out for the motel voucher. It was heartbreaking to see so many people refuse the help, but when you are in active addiction and you are given the choice between a motel for 30 days or going to treatment, you're going to take the motel. Colin and I will continue our efforts and are grateful to the City of Anaheim and your commitment to tackling addiction, especially with the Drug Free Anaheim program. Colin he also wanted me to let you know that he would be here tonight, but he got called out on a Drug Free Anaheim call. So he is trying to help somebody right now through that program. And then, you know, and thank you, Mayor Tate, and then Dr. Moreno for, we started an addiction collaborative, right? That was due to a conversation with Mayor Tate. At Jose's house, I say, you know, I really think that, you know, we should have an addiction collaborative. There's all these homeless ones, but nothing on addiction. And you were like, yeah, let's put it together. So we did. I came and sat with Jose. So anyways, that's been going great. It's growing bigger and bigger. We're having a resource fair on April 14th. At the Salvation Army over on North Street, and we're going to focus on education, prevention, resources and services, and for the whole family. So I hope to see everybody there, and when we get the flyers ready, we'll send them out.
Way to go. Well done. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Kenneth Batiste. Resident here, District 5, 10 years. With housing is a human right, Poor People's Campaign, represent us. This was a great ordeal that we just got through going through out there in that riverbed. And it was a big victory for us as the advocates, because if it wasn't for the advocates, the county would have just came through there and threw everybody out, and I guarantee it would have been a lot more arrests. It would have been blood. It would have been an ugly sight. But because of the advocates and knowing the information, when the judge came in with a common sense approach, because the last time I was here, I told you, if we had the right type of attitude, we wouldn't have to have lawsuits. So just saying that we have to have lawsuits to have the people, the government, do the right thing, because it was very simple. It was against the government entities. So I wonder why do we have all of this type of hesitation, especially when the Board of Supervisors had $700 million and the judge pointed that out. Well, we have a big corrupter, and our corrupter is Disneyland. And I'm going to point it out again. We got a big town hall meeting tomorrow with the union of the people who clean up the hotels. And it is going to go ahead and make Disneyland look like it is just totally neglectful and punishable to the bottom part of their echelon. The reason I say this, because it came to a vote to tax those revenue, and the city council passed it up. We had a $500 million debt. Now it has turned into $2 billion debt. So, and then I'm trying to figure out, well, why is it that we go ahead and have certain people, like Mr. Fitzgerald, he comes up here and he blasts you, and we go ahead and you tell us don't listen. Well, as a concerned citizen, you listen to everything. What disturbed me most last time that he was up here, and I will not use his reference to you, Ms. Barrett, but he said that he was in a negative way about Disney, and then he said something about the fire department. I'm going to close by saying this. It wasn't the part about the fire department that you went ahead and said. It was what you didn't say. He said you get paid $10,000 for a company that is affiliated with Disneyland, which is a conflict of interest. Anybody who's affiliated with Disneyland through their business is a conflict of interest, and I'm going to leave it at that.
So your time is up.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Murray.
as you stipulated, after Mr. Fitzgerald's comments, what he said was wholly false, directed at all of us. I don't work for a company that's affiliated, and I don't, everything he said was completely false, and if that needs to be stipulated, I'm happy to do so. Thank you.
Very good. Welcome, Wes.
Wes Jones, Honorable Mayor Tate, Mayor Pro Tem Moreno, and distinguished council. First thing I want to talk about is the La Palma Check-in Center. We need to restore services to a full level there. They were about 75% of the services were cut for triage day. Well, triage day is long gone, but the need for the check-in center still remains. We feed people every Wednesday there, and we're getting about 50 people that are eating on a Wednesday, and there's quite a group that actually uses the storage facility. There should be, like there was a job placement, housing, and other services that were cut, that needs to be restored. Now for the riverbed. We don't know yet what the impact of the riverbed is going to be. After 30 days, we don't know what the county is going to come up with. One thing we do know for sure is that the myth that people do not want services has been shattered. They just don't want to stay in places like the Armory or Courtyard, where it's just a circus. They want something orderly and organized. So, and what kind of impact this is going to have with our streets of Anaheim, that's yet to be determined. How many people are going to, what kind of placement is the county going to come up with? Are people actually going to be able to use these placements? Is it only going to be for the people on the riverbed, or is it going to be for the homeless already on the streets of Anaheim? That's yet to be determined. And the last thing I would like to do is I'd like to recognize a member of our advocates here, Brian E. Kay. On one day during the evacuation, he really stood out in helping elderly and handicapped people into the lines to achieve services, and people in wheelchairs. One lady with no wheelchair that he physically moved. So he really worked hard.
Mr. Jones, if you can conclude your comments, please.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you. Welcome.
Happy evening. Janine West Jones, please, thank you very much. You brought tears to my eyes tonight. I was just doing what I was doing out there, what I've been doing my whole life, but it was very touching to have it noticed. And Tom, too, thank you for expressing appreciation for that. Just like with Anaheim over 2017 and 2016, kind of had a front row seat to the growing pains. You know, I came to Anaheim because I wanted to follow the rules. I learned the rules, and I wanted to follow them, and I wanted to succeed through that. Unfortunately, the Anaheim City Council and the police department didn't want to do the same thing. They had their own ideas. I think even today, Jose Moreno doesn't agree with the recordings. I don't think Tom Tate wants to release the recordings either, which kind of puts you two completely out of spectrum with the laws that we have written down. So I've seen the growing pains with you right here in Anaheim. And we saw it with the sheriff. When they came out, their frontline officers admitted that they were overwhelmed. They had no idea what to do or how to handle the situation, and they actually asked the activists for help, which was a big step. They asked us, they asked the activists for help. And that was the first step, I believe, in the sheriff shedding what they wanted to do and doing what the law said, what the rules said, what the people had voted to have happen. So right there, I got to see the growing pains here, and I got to see the same growing pains with the sheriff. You know, they came in and they were ready to bust heads and arrest people and throw people out. But with the activists there, and I wasn't the only one. There was 20, 40 other activists, ones who I've given awards to, others that I haven't been able to give awards to. But we stood there and we changed the way the sheriff thought. And it was much like changing the way that you guys think. You know, I can't run into a police officer now without him thanking the fact that he has a recorder now. I'd like to be able to say the same thing one day. You know, I had this big speech and it's gone. And I'm really hoping that you guys will sit down, reach out to me, and we'll make some changes. Not just for me. I've got a whole family and everybody involved, and I want to be able to help more people. Happy evening.
Thank you. Welcome.
Here. Good evening, Mayor Tate and council members. It has been a crazy 2 weeks, I think, that this whole thing has been going on. And I must say that the riverbed went smoother than we thought, but we certainly did appreciate that the county accepted the help, even as awkward as it was during the time that we've been there. Many of us are now spending times in motels, other locations that people have been placed, trying to fill some gaps because the county is overwhelmed in trying to meet the needs of these folks. We're in week 2, and most do not have their second week food cards. They don't have any transportation. Unfortunately, some of the motels don't have heat and a few other basic services like towels and shower curtains, little things like that. But folks are so appreciative. I've not had one say to me, I don't want to stay here. They are so excited and hesitant to the point of talking about things. And why I bring that up is we know we have some motels in Anaheim. So far, so good. We haven't had any major complaints from the residents. There are some different behavioral issues that people are going with, but it's usually the staff because they don't know what to do with folks that are there. I think there's an us and them mentality going on, and that's quite a heartbreaker. But again, we're there. Also, as a fairly new resident of Anaheim, I got to tell you, you got some amazing citizens here. You really do. They have been out there night and day and taking calls. And I am not a morning person. I have become a morning person. This is not what I signed on for as a retiree, but I must say, if they can do it, so can I, and keep up with it. And I do hope that more of you will think of ways to help and push the county's success. Today, we did go to the United to End Homelessness piece. They did mention that all the cities have met. We are going to double a supportive housing build in Orange County. Each city is going to have so many, and I'm sure you've already identified places, and maybe the ground will be broken soon for what Anaheim is going to contribute to that pot. One thing that I did notice, and we've watched the judge, he's fascinating. If you have a spare day, if you can watch him in court, he will bring tears to your eyes, get you to laugh, and also make you be so proud of the kinds of things he can step up and do. And he has helped the county get through this, and he'll help cities if he needs to as well. I was a little surprised one day an Anaheim attorney didn't show up. That was kind of shocking, but he didn't seem to mind that too much. The big issue is now people on the streets. Certainly those in the motels, we've got to wrap around that and get the wraparound services the county promised. But the folks that are in the motels have some cover. Those on the streets don't. The judge will be watching arrests. I've gotten a couple calls today about some arrests in Anaheim. I haven't had a chance to see what that turns into, but we are watching, and we hope that we have the support of you here on the dais today. And in addition, tomorrow night, La Palma Park Check-In Center, as Wes mentioned, we need to bump those services back up. You're welcome to come out, bring something to share on the table, and again, meet some of your local folks who are still on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. I want to start off by thanking those of you who at least took interest or took part in the education of finding out who and what the riverbed environment was like and the eviction process. Councilman Moreno, for your participation and at least being in attendance while several of us or a few of us actually were helping to serve meals at La Palma Park. Those are the excuse me, those are the kinds of things that I think the community would expect that our leaders would do more often, to show they have genuine concern for their communities. Really just here to, again, say thank you and to remind everyone that the eviction of the riverbed is not the end. There are still many homeless throughout everybody's district, throughout the county, but specifically in Anaheim, all over. And there still needs to be some resolve. There still needs to be some outreach. There still needs to be some genuine concern. People are still dying. People are still going hungry. People still have needs. So I sound like a broken record because I know you've heard me say it before, but we need your help to help alleviate this or help to dissolve it. I understand we'll never alleviate it. That makes good sense. It's sad, but it's true. But to help dissolve the issue of homelessness is really what I'm asking, not for me, but for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone else would like to speak under public comments? See none, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting and move on to council comments. I want to, a few people talked about on the homeless issue tonight about the value of a job. And I think providing a job is a big part of this equation. Not the only part, but a big part of the equation on helping solve this issue. And we started something called Better Way Anaheim, where through folks, some volunteers, Love Anaheim, come together, and we have a van that goes out, and really kind of more of a day type job for folks. I'm really pleased to announce that Chrysalis called my office, and Chrysalis is, I actually about over a year ago on my State of the City, I announced that we're inviting them, we're trying to get them to come to Anaheim. And they're a jobs program, actually headquartered in Los Angeles. But they announced, their board of directors unanimously approved an expansion to Orange County, to Anaheim. And what that is, that's more of a permanent job. It's kind of like a staffing company where Chrysalis will actually hire folks who are homeless, overlooking all those barriers that keep them from being hired, maybe a prior record or addiction issues or things like that. And then a company will hire Chrysalis for a few months until they get to know that employee, and then bring him or her on full time. So it's really, they've had great success in Los Angeles. And I want to thank them for coming to Anaheim. I want to thank Linda Andall, our city manager. I know you've been working hard at that. And I want to thank the people, the philanthropy behind it, the funders behind that who want to make that happen. And I think it's a great day for the Better Way Anaheim program, and I'm very excited about that. Let's see, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did prepare a brief PowerPoint based on some work I've done in the last 7 to 10 days in conjunction with a lot of our service providers, the county and city staff. So I'd ask for that to come up. But before I start on this, I just want to share, Mr. Mayor, I know you called for the city to work with Chrysalis at your prior State of the City, and I took some time to go down there and meet with their staff and tour their facilities, as well as how they've helped the neighboring community. It's extraordinary, and I look forward to working with you to make that successful. It really is just extraordinary. It's the only word that comes to mind and encapsulates the work they've done for decades, and I'm excited that's coming to Anaheim. So thank you for your leadership on that. So with regard, it's been spoken to tonight. It's been truly a Herculean effort to shelter more than 700 people in the last 7 to 10 days, and the vast majority, literally within the last week of those, but made possible because of an extraordinary team effort of counties, cities, CityNet, Lighthouse, Tamru's here today, and Colin down there every day. And so many good people who've come together, but in particular, the guidance, direction, and support of Judge David Carter, federal judge overseeing the county's effort on this. So if I could go to the next slide, please. So that, for everyone to see, that's Judge Carter. He actually convened the court. I went down there, I spent the day down there and really listened and engaged with officials from all parties affected, as well as stakeholders, and the judge just showed extraordinary leadership that day, and then asked for a number of folks to join him in walking early, pre-dawn the next morning. And we started about 5:30 in the morning, got on the trail really closer to 6, and then literally walked nearly 7 miles up and down both sides of the riverbed, talking to individuals every step of the way, engaging with plaintiffs' attorneys and activists, homeless advocates, I should actually, there's a better way to phrase that, and then also county staff and city net officials and so many volunteers. And you can see, I want to call Tamara out in the corner. She spoke earlier tonight, but with Lighthouse, literally down there every day, Judge Carter would come find her and ask how things are going and trying to get people those services. But his leadership and personal engagement is what led to a settlement and enforcement actions that benefit the entire county. So I was very pleased to attend and be in chambers on February 13th to walk with him, the county, and plaintiffs on the 14th, and then to be there in person on the 20th when he lifted the stay, and you'll see in that top left corner, literally convened the hearing with everybody involved in the right next to, adjacent to the river trail in the parking lot of the Honda Center. If we could go to the next slide. Just really quick to showcase and highlight for our residents and everyone involved. Over 100 county employees were involved working around the clock over the last 7 to 10 days, nearly 2 weeks. CityNet's been there since July on behalf of the county, as you all know, with the city since 2014. But 250 were helped just through CityNet services since July of 2017. Additional 700 people over the last 2 weeks were sheltered, and I have the breakdown if there's interest in that, but I know this isn't agendized tonight, so hopefully we can have a more thorough report come back. County staff and contractors are connecting those. Really important to emphasize to conduct a clinical assessment of their social service and sheltering needs so that beyond that 30-day timeline, there's a game plan. And then I serve on the board of the Association of California Cities, Orange County, and a number of you are engaged in their programs. But ACCOC is leading a 34-city and countywide effort to create 2,700 permanent supportive housing units across the county over the next 3 years, and we'll be fully engaged in that effort. And then the Orange County Sheriff's Department fully enforcing public safety and the trespass laws following these closures to make sure public safety for all involved is protected. I've taken all of these pictures over the last few weeks. So on the left, that's during the walk with Judge Carter. I wanted to be brief with this tonight, so I combined these on one slide, but you can see an assortment on the left. That was February 14th. This morning, I was down there early. This is today. The difference is truly almost night and day. The fact that those individuals are no longer living in these conditions, are in shelter of varying kinds, and hopefully we get them into permanent rehabilitative care sooner than later. But everybody is off this riverbed, out of this condition, and into a safer, more secure environment tonight as a result of this effort. And again, I do want to thank everybody involved. Lastly, just for everyone's benefit, we expanded locally Bridges at Kramer Place, 165 shelter beds there now. Of the 700 from the Santa River Trail, 19 accepted shelter at Bridges and 16 accepted services at Courtyard. We have additional capacity at both facilities. So as we and our staff encounter folks who are moving into the streets or leaving the motels, if we can really try to wrap around them and help them get into permanent shelter with real services, that's truly what's in their best interests, and make sure that they get the service and help that they need. With that, I just want to thank my colleagues again for your unanimous support of not just Operation Home Safe, but our work for a housing first policy going forward from the working group, and just the commitment Anaheim's had for years now to help all of those who are in need, who are homeless and or in transitional housing, get a pathway to a safer, more secure home. And thank you for your time.
Very, very good.
Lastly, just a comment, Mr. Mayor, about last week. I do applaud the county, certainly, and all of the staff who worked so hard. We should also recognize that our county Board of Supervisors does not fully staff its social services. There is a huge need in social services of our county. So I applaud the staff who stepped up under a judge's order, went above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that folks were treated humanely and with compassion to the extent of their abilities, given the budgets that they're given and the staffing that they're given. Folks should know that many folks who work for our county who provide services often struggle themselves to find affordable housing or even wages to live on. So hopefully our Board of Supervisors can also review that for themselves as well. And then just a big shout out. I think one of the things that we lose out in this incredible moment of people uniting to come together to fulfill a judge's order, we forget that it took plaintiffs and lawyers to come forth to file a lawsuit against the county that the judge, I think, so brilliantly brought together in a settlement. But at the end of the day, it only happened because a lawsuit was brought forth by lawyers trained in our public school systems, Brooke Weitzman and Carol Sobel, who have dedicated their lives to protecting the least amongst us. So I think they deserve as much a shout out as anyone else in this county, is that they stood up and said, we must live out our constitutional processes here in the county. And I applaud Judge Carter for making sure that that all came together. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
With that, we'll adjourn to when is it? Next meeting, March 6th.